From the sun-drenched plains of Burkina Faso emerged a leader forged in the crucible of conflict. In a nation yearning for self-determination, a young captain dared to dream of a sovereign future, setting his country on a bold and often perilous course. This is the story of Ibrahim Traore. Born on March 14, 1988 in the small village of Kéra in Bondo Coups, Ibrahim Traore grew up in a modest, rural setting, profoundly shaped by the resilience of his community. Attending primary school in his hometown and secondary school in Bobo-Dioulasso, Burkina Faso's second-largest city, he displayed a quiet intelligence and stood out for his academic performance. Pursuing higher education, Traore enrolled at the University of Ouagadougou in 2006, the country's premier institution. There, he studied geology and joined the Association of Muslim Students. He also participated in the Marxist Association Nationale des Étudiants du Burkina, ANEB, rising to a delegate position and becoming known for defending his classmates. He graduated with honors in 2009, a testament to his dedication and intellectual prowess. And then, instead of pursuing a civilian career, Traore made a bold decision to enlist in the Burkina Faso Army in 2009, choosing to serve his nation through military service. Quickly impressing his superiors, he underwent anti-aircraft training in Morocco before being transferred to an infantry unit in Kéra, a town grappling with insurgent activity. His military career saw him rise through the ranks. Promoted to lieutenant in 2014, he joined the United Nations Peacekeeping Force, MINUSMA, in Mali. In the Timbuktu region, he showed bravery during a complex attack by militants in 2018, earning widespread recognition. And then, returning to Burkina Faso, Traore continued playing a critical role in the escalating jihadist insurgency within his own country. He participated in numerous counterinsurgency operations, including the Otapuanu offensive in 2019, targeting strongholds in the northern regions. He also served in a detachment in the northern Sahel region. People who knew him described him as willful, courageous, and close to his men. And then, in 2020, he was promoted to captain, a rank reflecting his growing influence and accomplishments. But then, around the same time, Traore and other young officers became disillusioned with the country's leadership. The jihadist insurgency worsened dramatically, with groups linked to Islamic State and Al-Qaeda seizing territory and encircling cities. By late 2021, a humanitarian crisis gripped many parts of Burkina Faso, with a quarter of the population facing food insecurity and over 3,000 people killed by mid-September 2022. Soldiers on the front lines lacked equipment and sometimes did not receive their pay on time, breeding deep frustration. And then, driven by this widespread dissatisfaction, Traore was part of the group of army officers who supported the January 2022 military coup led by Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, which overthrew the civilian government of President Roch Marc Christian Kabore. But then, under Damiba's short time in power, the security situation failed to improve meaningfully. Jihadist attacks increased, and many became disillusioned with Damiba's inability to curb the violence. There were allegations that Damiba's personal ambitions were diverting him from the original goals of the coup. Soldiers felt abandoned and undervalued. And then a catalyst arrived on September 26, 2022. An attack by jihadist forces on a convoy headed for Djibo killed 37 people, including 27 soldiers. Rage surged among the troops, especially the younger members. Traore, as spokesman for the frustrated soldiers, attempted to meet with President Damiba to plead their case, but received no answer. And then, faced with this perceived contempt, Traore and officers of his generation decided to take action, launching a coup at dawn on September 30th, 2022. By 8 p.m. local time, a soldier in fatigues and a red beret appeared on national television, announcing that Captain Ibrahim Traore was taken over as head of the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration, MPSR, overthrowing Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. The coup leaders justified their actions by accusing Damiba of failing to address the deteriorating security situation and prioritizing unfortunate political adventures. But then, as the coup unfolded, Traore and his officers accused Damiba of seeking refuge at the French military base in Camboinsen to prepare a counteroffensive. This accusation ignited outrage in a nation already simmering with anti-French sentiment. Thousands took to the streets, targeting the French embassy and cultural institutes. What began as a military coup transformed into a popular uprising against perceived foreign interference. Momentum shifted as army units declared allegiance to Traore, and then, by the next morning, Damiba was forced to resign. On October 6, 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traore was officially appointed as the interim president of Burkina Faso and supreme head of the armed forces. At just 34 years old at the time of the coup, 35 upon official appointment, now 37, he became the world's youngest head of state. He appeared in military attire, often with the red beret, reflecting his focus on security and his background. He vowed to refocus on security and the restoration of territorial integrity. But then, despite his ascension, the country remained embroiled in a complex security environment, facing frequent attacks from jihadist groups. The task ahead was monumental, and then Traore's presidency has been marked by bold decisions. He adopted a tough stance against jihadists, ruling out negotiations. He frequently visited the front lines to rally troops. And then, in a defining move to assert sovereignty, he broke ties with France, expelling French troops in February 2023. This ended decades of military dependence, and then he sought to diversify international partnerships, strengthening collaborations with Russia, China, North Korea, and Turkey. This brought tangible benefits, including military equipment and drone acquisitions. Russian troops, including Wagner Group elements, were eventually deployed in January 2024. And then, recognizing the need for regional cooperation, Traore played a pivotal role in forming the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, with Mali and Niger. This strategic partnership aimed to combat terrorism collectively and foster regional unity. And then, focused on economic independence, his administration took steps to regain control over mining and gold refinery operations. Burkina Faso approved the construction of its first gold refinery to process gold domestically and suspended export permits for small-scale gold production to tackle illicit trade. And then, significant investments were directed towards infrastructure and industry. Projects include the construction of a large tomato processing factory, an automobile assembly plant, and infrastructure developments in Ouagadougou. Plans for a nationwide railway network, a pharmaceutical technopole, and a nuclear power plant with Russia are also underway. And then, his government prioritized agriculture, implementing measures like free tractor services and subsidized inputs, boosting food security. Investments were also made in healthcare and education, and environmental sustainability initiatives were launched, including reforestation and renewable energy projects. And then, in a notable move, Traore rejected the standard presidential salary, choosing to keep his military captain's pay. He also reduced government salaries by 20%, reinvesting savings into national development projects. He lives modestly, rejecting the luxury cars and palaces of many other leaders. And then, Traore has worked to promote transparency, accountability, and national unity, aiming to bridge ethnic and religious divides. But then, his leadership has faced immense danger. There have been numerous assassination attempts against him. Storytellers now call him Ibrahim, with 19 lives. The 19th attempt was planned for March 22, 2025, during the unveiling of the Sahel Federation Treaty. A tiny, invisible drone was shipped under diplomatic cover, aided by a spy in Traore's security team. But then, a 23-year-old tech genius, Fatouma Dio, monitoring communications with her AI system, Project Endelo, detected an unusual signal. She activated a jamming signal and alerted security just moments before the drone hit, causing it to spiral out of the sky. But then, the plan had a backup. The mole on the ground tried to detonate a device manually. As Traoré stood on stage, his security head noticed a falling object, yelling, "Get down, Mr. President," and shielding him as a blast shook the area. Traoré survived, and the Sahel Federation Treaty was officially signed that day. This attempt didn't break him. It turned him into something greater. But then, the investigation into the 19th attempt uncovered a deep network of foreign spies and local insiders, with one name frequently appearing, the Vulture, later identified as Jacques Lem. Lem, a rogue operator linked to powerful companies seeking West Africa's minerals, saw Traoré as an obstacle. Traoré responded swiftly to the failed attempt, ordering a full sweep of compromised institutions and rolling out major security reforms. He gathered his closest allies in an underground bunker, launching Operation Iron Roots, an overhaul of defense and intelligence. Fatouma Dio was named head of cyber defense, and the Phoenix unit was formed for stealth missions and counter-espionage, tasked with striking first. Regional allies from Mali and Niger also stepped up their support. But then, the Vulture reappeared, planning a new operation called Silk Guillotine. This plot involved two assassins blending in with a media crew during Traoré's public visit to the Tamba manganese mine, a site recently nationalized. One carried poison, the other a camera to capture chaos and spin it in the Western press. And then Fatouma's AI system, deployed across government networks, picked up strange data from the camera days beforehand, triggering an alert. The Phoenix unit acted fast, neutralizing the threat quietly before the public event. Traoré remained unfazed, continuing his visit. But then, another complex plot was exposed, potentially the one planned for April 16, 2025. This involved betrayal from within Traoré's army, orchestrated by a high-ranking officer named Bahari Abdrahman and a network of traitors. According to reports, this conspiracy was backed by foreign powers and authorities in Ivory Coast. But then, the plan was chilling. Sabotage security by feeding intel to terrorists to make the government look weak, create division within the army through disinformation, manipulate traditional leaders to sway officers, and corrupt the volunteers for the defense of the homeland, VEP. The ultimate goal was to destabilize Burkina Faso completely and hand its leadership to an international organization for 10 to 20 years, dismantling Traoré's vision of sovereignty. A coordinated assault on Traoré and his inner circle was planned, along with large-scale terrorist attacks across the country to force the army into an impossible choice. The plot was foiled thanks to patriotic soldiers and VDP members. Approached by the traitors with offers of money and power, they refused and reported the conspiracy to intelligence services. This allowed for an investigation and arrest just one day before the planned attack. A national disaster was avoided, but then, despite the arrests, Bahari Abdrahman managed to escape to Ivory Coast, where he is believed to be hiding. According to the Burkinabe Minister of Security, the command center of this anti-Burkina plot is based in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. This raises difficult questions about African unity, as Ivory Coast authorities are accused of protecting these individuals. Traoré had previously warned that Ivory Coast was working with France to destabilize Burkina Faso, and the sources suggest a pattern of foreign interference, particularly from France, seeking to maintain influence and control over African resources by supporting internal collaborators. Even with the ongoing threats and challenges, Traoré continues to lead. He is seen by many, especially young people, as a symbol of a new, fearless Africa. His image, jacket ripped, fist raised after surviving an attempt, appears on walls across the Sahel. He is known by many names: the Iron Flame, the Panther of Faso, the President with 19 lives. Traoré understands the danger of being turned into just a symbol. He relies not on superstition, but on strengthening his nation's defenses and intelligence. And then, when asked, Traoré simply says, "I'm just one voice. If I fall, let thousands rise and speak louder." His story continues to unfold, a testament to resilience and the fight for sovereignty in a continent striving for self-reliance.